Welcome back. You're watching the Urban Debate on Mirror. I'm Faye. Thank you for joining us. This is an important story, and the reason why it's important is because there's a tendency to forget about it. And our job here is to make sure that nobody forgets about Nirav Modi. Nobody forgets about the kind of money he took out of this country. He scammed all of us. That money belonged to you and me. And we're going to keep bringing the story back into focus on a regular basis, because those people who have been tasked with finding him and bringing him back and prosecuting him and recovering our cash would like us to forget about it, but that's not what we're going to do. Now, there are more facts emerging on this particular case. Here's what we have today. The fact number one: the Central Vigilance Commission, or the CVC, had raised an alarm about the possibility of these scams in January last year. Fact number two: the CVC held a meeting with the CBI, with the Enforcement Directorate officials, with 10 bank officers of 10 different banks to highlight such problems. And that brings us to fact number three. They highlighted irregularities in the gems and the jewelry business. Now, the reason why we know all of this is because the Central Vigilance Commission has just brought out its annual report, and it is littered, ladies and gentlemen, with details of how it had repeatedly approached public sector banks, and asked those banks to be more careful about the gems and jewelry sector. It had called attention, and that's our fourth fact, to frauds of Jatin Mehta, who runs a jewelry business called Winsome Group that is linked with the Nirav Modi group. Now, despite all of this, in the report it says very clearly no action was taken by any of these banks, and specifically by Punjab National Bank. Now, this brings us to the question we have been asking for weeks on this channel. Who was responsible for allowing Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi to run away with that much money? Who was responsible? Who's responsible, and who has been tasked with keeping our money safe? Is it, first of all, the RBI, who is the regulator of these banks? I also want to remind you that the CVC has said very clearly that the RBI did not conduct the audits it was supposed to conduct while this scam was taking place. Secondly, was it the manager or the MD of the bank who's been tasked with running that bank? If that is true, why has this person not been prosecuted? Thirdly, was it the finance ministry, who functions as the owner of these banks, representing the people of India? Or was it all of the above? Who was responsible, and why is it that this long drawn-out investigation is not reaching any sort of conclusion, and we simply don't know who colluded to allow Nirav Modi to run away with the kind of money that he did? My phone lines are open to you, viewers. Joining me on the show, Thomas Franco, General Secretary of the All India Bank Officers Confederation. We also have Kailash Vasudev, Senior Advocate with the Supreme Court, Vaibhav Aggarwal of the BJP, Sanjay Jha of the Congress, Govindraj Aitiraj, Senior Journalist and founder of FactChecker.in, Meghnad S, columnist and political analyst. I welcome all of you for joining us on the show. I want to just remind both Vaibhav Aggarwal and Sanjay Jha that we don't have too much time for a mudslinging match between the BJP and the Congress. So let's just focus on the specific problem at heart. Mr. Kailash Vasudev, I'm going to start with you. Front page news of the CVC today that says that the CVC raised an alarm a year ago. 2 weeks ago, there was a story that said the RBI did not do proper auditing in the PNB bank fraud. Whose fault was it, Mr. Vasudev, according to you?
The situation is very complex in this case. It is everybody's fault. The biggest fault is of the banks in themselves in not following the own guidelines which they're supposed to follow. The Reserve Bank in 2014 had set down very powerful guidelines for the purposes of regulating and governing loans and the manner and method to recover them. The CVC comes into play for a limited purpose of supervising investigations and making its recommendations based on information made available to it. It can raise a red herring and tell the government, look, things are going to happen, but largely the CVC is obliged also to supervise such investigations as are available to it. You must understand one peculiar complex in our system of bureaucracy and our functioning of our acts. Every act is controlled by bureaucrats because they are the persons who are appointed to look after and carry out the functions under the act. Under the Central Vigilance Commission Act, it is always a bureaucrat who comes into the picture, assisted by two other persons as commissioners. Now, if you have a bureaucrat who is going to be in the system, you're going to find it very difficult to implement an act because there is always an interest which carries on because these are not permanent appointments. These appointments are variable and post removable. You must have a permanent commission. You must have a permanent system. You must have a permanent system of reporting to everybody because the CVC is appointed by the Prime Minister and is reporting to the Prime Minister also. If you have a system which lets things go, only says there's a red herring, but we are not going to follow up any further, you will never find an answer. B, banking regulation has become a joke. The Act provides for various situations. Banks have a certain hierarchy, starting from the lowest manager down to the board of directors. Loans are sanctioned from a certain level, moving up all the way up, and they are audited. They're supposed to be audited every now and then. Audits are now being found to be faulty and incorrect.
Yes.
Therefore, this fault is in the system by and large. We need to look at the whole thing afresh. Nothing has worked so far. Hundreds and thousands of crores have vanished into thin air at the behest of people who are fraudsters. Nirav Modi is the latest instance. There have been so many. There have been the Mundras, there have been God knows how many people who have played with the bank system and taken advantage of it. In 70 years, we have not learned a lesson. Actually, from 1969, after nationalization, the frauds have increased.
Right, and here's a question we have to ask. Why is the managing director of the bank still the managing director of the bank? And why have we not held anybody responsible up until now? I'm going to go across to Thomas Franco. Thomas Franco, who's at fault here? Is it the finance ministry as the owner of the bank, or is it the RBI at this point? And I want to remind you that the RBI put out a statement some time ago saying that it was pained and angry at this scam. One wonders if the RBI's emotions should lean more towards efficiency as opposed to pain and anger.
Well, the responsibility lies with all the people who have been there to deal with the banks and also the supervise the banks. Now, in this case, in the guideline given by the Central Vigilance Commission, even in 2016 they had issued a guideline that there should be regular monitoring of the chairman and managing director of the banks, and in case of frauds and other things there should be follow-up and while they are in service and even if they are out of the service. The responsibility of the CVC is also to see whether these guidelines issued are really implemented. Similarly, RBI issues guidelines and it is responsibility of the RBI to see that it is implemented. That supervision is lacking, and today the banks, because of the policies changed, are converted into supermarkets, or what they call it, the universal banks, where it has come to a situation that we say we also do banking. We do Aadhaar, we keep doing mutual funds, cross-selling of insurance products, and this all has affected the supervision as a whole. The basic function of commercial banks is collecting deposit and giving advances and monitoring them. That is being diluted.
Right. Stay, no, let's actually see, Thomas Franco, I don't want to make this show too technical.
The policies which has affected has to be...
Right, I don't want to make this topic too technical right now. I just want to focus on the fraud itself and how this happened so that our audience is able to understand how this happened. Vaibhav Aggarwal, what is the progress on the investigation and the arrest of Nirav Modi?
Good evening, Faye, and good evening to all the panelists. I think since I don't have a television in front of me today, I don't know the names, and I was trying to flutter with my patch. But the first gentleman who spoke, he spoke very articulately and very efficiently in terms of saying that this is the situation.
Mr. Kailash Vasudev is a senior advocate with the Supreme Court, after which there was Mr. Thomas Franco, who is with the General Secretary of the All India Bank Officers Confederation.
Right. And Thomas and I think we've debated with you before as well. Okay. So I think, so it's rightly said, and Thomas has also made points out rightly. And as far as the government's commitment is concerned, with respect to the entire story getting committed here, and with respect to the entire events that have panned out over a period of time, we saw today that non-bailable warrants were issued for both Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi. And yes, we are moving very swiftly. Now, if we demand that, and this could happen all the time, we are humans at the end of the day, that it should happen and it should happen today. No, it can't happen, because we are having to work with the system, which actually, the deeper you dive, did not have too many merits, and we are only in the process of fixing the systems from an entirety. So it's just so difficult to move it at a pace where we all want it to move, and we are still making a headway on it. So the government is absolutely committed. I am not naming and shaming anyone, any particular party, any particular nothing, but I want to stick to the point that yes, my government, the Modi government, is absolutely committed to bringing the money back, and not just the money back. We are also committed to bringing the perpetrators back. And this is part of organized crime.
No, Vaibhav Aggarwal, you say you will bring Nirav Modi and the money back. What's your plan of action?
Yes. Right. The plan of action is clearly shown in our commitment. We've issued non-bailable warrants. We're covering the black and white as a process of law. And of course, we're using some sources at the ground level, which would feed us with the information as to how we can actually trap the two gentlemen who are actually abroad, who are not within the jurisdiction of the country, and bring them to book.
That sounds like a very good plan. But we still have to find out who let them get out to begin with. And I know Kailash Vasudev wants to rebut. Kailash Vasudev, rebut very quickly, and then I will bring in the rest of the panel. Kailash Vasudev, please.
Faye, can I come in quickly?
The position is very simple. You have information.
Kailash Vasudev, go ahead, and then I'll bring in.
The government has had information about this whole thing fermenting since The government has had information that such frauds have been fermenting since 2015-16. As for reports, they go back to 2012, the Nirav Modi affair. In 2017, when these gentlemen catch a flight and go out, there is no one to stop them. Everything starts after these people have left the country. Why? If you had information, if you had 11,000 crores being pocketed by somebody on the basis of letters of understanding or undertakings, whatever you call them, which were found to be fraudulent, there were liabilities of the banks. The banks are aware of their annual audits which take place on the 31st of March every year. Why couldn't steps be taken to prevent these people? You've not only let the Modis run away, but there are so many people who've gone. See the Kanpur gentleman with pens. There's innumerable frauds. Why can't we stop it? In 2014, the resolution was we will get rid of frauds, we will get rid of corruption. Where has it stopped? It has just continued, magnified, and is not being stopped. And bank loans today are staggering. Not only Punjab National Bank, but if you take all the nationalized banks, their loan figures are fantastically high.
Yes. And let me just point out to you, one second. Let me just reiterate what Mr. Vasudev is saying. No, Vaibhav, you have to listen here. The Central Vigilance Commission had highlighted irregularities in KYC, anti-money laundering guidelines when opening accounts. It had highlighted problems in the absence of due diligence when it comes to importers and overseas suppliers.
Correct.
It had highlighted problems when it came to specifically the diamonds and the jewelry business. It had also highlighted that there was no uniformity in the banking sector on the issue of appointment of outside agencies. It had even pointed out now that the RBI did not do proper auditing. So obviously, this entire system has failed. Govind wanted to come out. Govind Raj Etraj, very senior journalist and the founder of factchecker.in.
Yeah.
Govind, please go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Faye. So first of all, I know the CVC report just came out in the press right now, but I told you this, or I was trying to say this in a previous panel discussion about 3 weeks ago, that if you asked anyone in general about the gems and jewelry industry, people would have told you that there's something wrong and there are many big players who are about to go under. So this was common knowledge. So I was referring to the point, and I hate to sort of say that I told you so, that if someone had basic industry intel on the gems and jewelry industry, they would have said that there is a problem. And this is known for many years. I mean, and many years, I mean at least 3-4 years, if not longer. So that is number one. See, there are 3 or 4 problems or challenges with the banking industry, right? So the first is to do with industry and intelligence, which is, let's say, more a bank-specific problem. So if I have exposure to gems and jewelry or steel or cement or power, then I need to know more about what's happening in it, and maybe I need to share that information with other people as well, which clearly is not happening in the way we think it should be happening. The second is to do with provisioning. Now, obviously, in terms of provisioning, the quality of provisioning has improved. What I mean when I say quality of provisioning, I mean the norms have become stricter, which is why more and more bad loans are being revealed to us, public, or to shareholders, or to depositors, and the general public. The third thing is to do with transaction systems, and that's where the Punjab National Bank specific problem lies, which has been caught out. The fourth is to do with cybersecurity. Now, cybersecurity actually is an area where I think and I hope as a country we are much stronger in our banking system than maybe many other areas. Now, if you look at provisioning, if you look at transaction systems, and if you look at industry intelligence, these are the 3 areas where where we have taken steps, we are clearly weak. So I would concur with what some of the previous gentlemen said. I think there is a larger systemic problem, and many holes have been exposed because of the problems that we've had. Now, everything is not a fraud.
Here's the question I want to ask you. Forgive me for interrupting you, Govind.
So the Suraj Diamonds case, yeah.
Is there a reason why the management of PNB, so PNB has had 2 managing directors supervise this entire period of the scam period. There's Usha Ananthasubramanian, who was the former MD CEO, and the current MD CEO, who's Sunil Mehta. Why is it that neither of them have really been taken to task? Because fundamentally, if something went wrong in the bank, it's the bank's management or the MD CEO who should be questioned. But we're still pinning the blame on a small manager in a particular branch.
I said exactly this the last.
Yes, you did.
I said exactly this the last time too. I said, I wondered why is it that the top management of, we're all going after the top management of ICICI Bank and Axis Bank, as we should. So why are we not going after the top management of Punjab National Bank and making them accountable? They absolutely should be accountable.
Correct.
And what the CVC report tells you is that there are enough warning bells and signals in the system for any industry. So we are talking about gems and jewelry where the exposure actually is very small compared to, let's say, a steel or a power. We don't know what the CVC has said about steel, when it said it, which are the companies or business groups it pointed out to, and what has been done subsequently. So actually, there will be more hiding or concealed under rocks in industries like power and steel than perhaps in gems and jewelry, and that's what I think I would be worried about.
All right, let me also bring in Sanjay Jha. Sanjay Jha of the Congress. You want to respond to what's being said?
Faye, I think by an extraordinary coincidence, when you look at the CVC flagging off the red flag a year ago, or rather in early part of 2017, it is at that same time, and that is, I think, a remarkable similarity in terms of period. That is exactly the same time when 80% of the letters of undertaking were issued by the Punjab National Bank, which resulted in the astronomical fraud. So around the time that the CVC had warned the government, and by the way, the law enforcement agencies were part of the, part of the meeting. They were part of the confabulations. It included the ED, it included the income tax, and it is at the same time that the Punjab National Bank was, hand in glove with the perpetrators of the fraud. So that by itself is, in my opinion, a very uncanny situation, because that answers the fundamental question that you asked, Govind, which is that why isn't the senior management of the Punjab National Bank questioned, arrested, or asked to resign? Because possibly that could open up a Pandora's box, and that's the reason why no action has been taken. Point number 2, and this is critical, and this is not a political statement. One of the reasons why a lot of the businessmen disappear with a red carpet send-off, and they are allowed to, actually commit these, humongous frauds in the Indian banking system, is because the money gets routed back into political funding. I always keep saying that the biggest problem is electoral reforms with regards to transparent funding. And I'm sure this money gets routed back, which is why a lot of these people get away. Actually, they don't even care. You know, Vaibhav was right in saying that we should a non-bailable warrant, but that has been issued against Lalit Modi and Vijay Mallya and so many other people in the past. Nothing is going to happen. Nobody is coming back. Let me tell you, they're not coming back. One of the biggest, by the way, is a guy called Jatin Mehta of Winsome Diamonds, who, by the way, duped the bank of around 7,000 crores and is now living in the Caribbean islands watching the tranquil blue waters. So, you know, I don't think anything is going to happen. This is a serious fraud, and I think the taxpayer is understandably aggrieved.
Well, the taxpayer should be understandably aggrieved because this particular Jatin Mehta of Winsome Group, the CVC had a meeting with PNB about Jatin Mehta, discussed the frauds that were being committed. PNB was the lead bank to give loans to Mehta as well. So it seems almost like the Central Vigilance Commission has absolutely no clout over the banking sector, that the RBI has no interest in the banking sector whatsoever because it refuses to show any interest in the banking sector. Let me point out something about the RBI to you viewers. A few weeks ago, the RBI governor made this very dramatic, and I really don't understand where the need is for the dramatics, that he's angry and he's emotional and he's upset, and then he went on to say, look at these public sector banks, we have no control over them because the government owns them. Now, please, Mr. RBI governor, tell me what's happening with the private sector.
Correct.
If you're having so much trouble because the government is interfering with the public sector, who's interfering with the private sector? The RBI has bungled up and made a mess of everything from demonetization onwards. And it almost seems like there is no accountability for the RBI. You're sleeping on the job. And Urjit Patel needn't offer us his tears or his anger because it's of absolutely no use to the people of this country. The money has already gone. Meghnad S. is a columnist and a political analyst. Meghnad, collective failure.
Yeah, exactly. So I would like to start off by thanking you for bringing this up because this does need to be refreshed again and again in the public memory, and this is a very important thing. The reason why this is important is because it points towards a epic proportion systemic failure, right? So as the news report said, the CVC had a meeting where they alerted the following people. It was the they alerted the RBI, they alerted the CBI, they alerted the ED, all of them, right? So CVC is supposed to keep a check on the government corruption. RBI is supposed to be a regulator of the banking sector in general. CBI is supposed to investigate crime, and ED is supposed to investigate financial fraud. There is another angle to this. There are CAs who are supposed to do statutory audit of banks, and they are the ones who sign off on whatever the banks are doing, right? So all of these failed one by one. All of these mechanisms, or whatever you want to call it, which should have ideally pointed out this massive failure, have failed. So what is really going on in that situation where 5 agencies just are clueless? Who is working, right? The second thing is, if these people are not working, then how are we as public, as citizens, how are we supposed to hold the government or these agencies accountable? The parliament. But then the parliament has listed this just one discussion on the banking sector failure for 21 days, and this discussion was avoided thanks to multiple parties, the Congress, AIADMK, which is BJP's friend, TRS, TDP, you name it. Every day they basically disallowed other MPs to ask questions to the government,
yes,
which means the public could not hold the government accountable in the parliament also. So it's a giant systemic failure, and all we are doing is looking at, say, Nirav Modi and now this Winsome Diamond, but it's a giant problem which also includes the NPA sector, as a gentleman earlier pointed out.
Hang on, Meghnad, forgive me, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Yes, we need to break this up into smaller parts. Yes, Govind, I'll come back to you. I have a couple of people on the phone line. I want to be able to address as many as possible. But I have one comment that's coming from my viewer who says, Faye, you said collective failure. Should we be looking at it differently? Could it have been collective collusion? Which is another thing we should approach as soon as I take these phone calls. Indra from Mumbai on the phone line. Indra, go ahead.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes, Indra, go ahead.
Hi, this is Indira Satyanarayan from Mumbai.
Yes.
Mr. Aggarwal said that the government is determined to bring back Mr. Nirav Modi. The same thing was said when Vijay Mallya fled the country. The same thing was said when Lalit Modi fled the country. To this day, government officials are saying that they are going to bring back Dawood. No such thing has happened. So, Mr. Aggarwal's assurances actually lack credibility. These criminals are very clever. They first make provisions to leave the country, then only commit the crime. I'm surprised Mr. Aggarwal doesn't realize this.
Right. No, so it's not true that they leave the country first and then commit the crime, but then that would be a crime in a different jurisdiction. They commit the crime. They buy a first-class ticket. In this case, he moved his children out of school mid-term, flew them to America, then his wife left, then the rest of his family left one by one. Then they closed down their home in South Mumbai. Then he bought a first-class ticket and he left. And then about a week and a half later, people said, where's the money? So this does point out to collusion. There's also Dharmesh Bhatia on the phone line from Mumbai. Dharmesh, go ahead.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Hello.
Yes, Dharmesh, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I have a question for the BJP spokesperson
Yes.
who said that they are going to bring back Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi. I would like to know when are they going to bring them back and whether the money will be brought back or not.
Yes.
Do they have any action plan? Can they give any time frame? Like within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they can bring back these people? And
Yeah.
one more question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, one more question. The other people who are involved in this such a big mega scam, bank scam, who are very much within India, they are the bank officers, the managers, and several other people are involved in the scam. What action the BJP has taken against them? Where is the transparency? What has been done till date? And the most important question is whether the money is going to be brought back in India or not.
Yes. Whether the money is going to be brought back. Govind, you were going to answer. And Govind, this is the other question. How will the money possibly come back?
No, so I think, Faye, let's not get drawn into this, sort of extreme narrative about, we'll bring them back in 2 weeks and the money will come back. It is not going to come back, and we all know that. Yes, it is. I guess the BJP, being the party in power today, has no choice but to say that. But let's face it; these are international jurisdictions. It takes time, it takes effort, and there's no guarantee that you'll be able to catch that person and bring them back. Yes, but I totally accept that you have to make a commitment and you have to try and get it, which I'm sure the government of the day is doing. I think that's one part. The second part is, let's not, the easiest thing is to keep telescoping the issue out till you say that, oh, it's actually a very large conspiracy, there's big collusion, there are mega players, there's political parties, there's the Prime Minister, and that's a sure way of diffusing and dissipating the core problem, which is that there was a fraud in the bank. Now, if you go back, if there is a fraud in the bank, who is responsible? The person above that, maybe 1 or 2 levels above that, and finally the CEO of the bank or the managing director, as the case may be, and the board, which is supposed to be overseeing that particular chairman and managing director. Let's focus on that and let's fix the problem at that end first, rather than going into the grand conspiracy. Of course, there may be collusion. Of course, there may be politicians who may have called up and deals may have been done back channel and all of that. But let's not get into all of that. Let's focus on where the problem happened, where the fraud was committed, where the loans were sanctioned, and pin the people who were responsible at that stage and who were immediately and the people they were immediately accountable to. Fix that first, and then let's go hunting all over the place in what to me really seems like a wild goose chase.
Let me bring in Kailash Vasudev on that note. Mr. Vasudev, here's the question, drawing from what Govind just said. If the management of the bank has not been held accountable yet, do you have any faith in the investigation that is being conducted at this point into this scam?
Mr. Souza, here there is a very, very interesting situation which we learn in courts. CBI investigations take decades. By the time the investigation and the trial is over, evidence is missing. The total conviction by the CBI is less than 60% of the cases lodged. And that also, the conviction takes place of the small man, not of the main people who are there. Because those cases are allowed against the smaller minions in the absence of evidence against the senior participants. Second aspect of it, banking. Banking has an hierarchy. There's a Banking Regulation Act. The Government of India has its own regulations. The Reserve Bank has regulations. The banks themselves have their own systems and their own rules. Please understand, these are statutory banks established under the in the Indian system after nationalization in 1969. There is a gay abandon of all these when a loan is to be given because the bank manager is normally said to be pliant and helps in giving loans. Once he gives a loan, he is transferred out. The loan continues. The next manager comes in and says, all right, for the purposes of my assessments, I'm going to enhance the loans because I'll get a better credit, a better reckoning in my system. The whole system then starts failing one after the other. One loan, it's like saying, take from Peter to pay Paul. The cycle doesn't end. The cycle enhances itself. The system fails and we have no solutions to do this. We have solutions, but we don't want to implement them because, as I said, the system is not run by permanent bankers.
I disagree with that. I would like to come in on this.
A bank.
Right. All right. Vaibhav Aggarwal responds to that. Vaibhav Aggarwal wants to disagree. Now, Vaibhav, here are the questions that have piled up for you from our viewers.
Yeah.
What are these promises you're making of bringing back Nirav Modi, bringing back the money? Govind sitting here telling us it's impossible to bring the money back at this point. The money is gone. Why don't you just say the money is gone? Sorry, oops, we lost it. That would be the honest thing to do, Vaibhav.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, but that's not the case here. Now, to each is to err, and I think Mr. Vasudev, Govind, everyone else, each of us have the right to our own opinions. But you know, when I take it point by point, and I would not go into deeper details, but I would just like to correct a few points to at least Mr. Vasudev, because I'm a fan of his work, and I expect a little more data when he makes a bold statement, say as to the government, when it came in, and I quote, he said
hang on. One second. Vaibhav Aggarwal, you have warned you about pointing fingers at my guests on the panel. Now, here's my question to you. Nirav Modi borrowed money. He set up businesses across the world. When you say you're going to bring the money back, what are you going to do? Auction off his Park Avenue store? Are you going to auction his Hong Kong store? Do you have the jurisdiction to seize and auction property in New York and London and Hong Kong? Do you? The truth is you don't.
Well,
so how will you bring, it's not like it's sitting in a suitcase under his bed, is it? How will you bring it back?
I would just sit quietly there.
No, but I don't understand. You just said you'd bring the money back. Tell me how. How will you bring the money back? Under what jurisdiction?
I am coming to that. I am coming to that. Now, just to look at it from a 2013-14 perspective, since then we've been able to fix the system and defunct 2.7 lakh companies which were used as shell companies to siphon off money. That's the beginning. And that's the level of commitment that this government has towards fixing the system. And when we say that we have the commitment, we also have the commitment to issue non-bailable warrants against some of the larger businessmen. We also have the commitment to also pursue this matter in other jurisdictions, thanks to our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi's efforts in global relations, that we've been able to crack things that we've never been able to crack. For example, a temple in Saudi Arabia. So just for the sake of commitment, I will not be in a position, nobody can be in a position to say what time frame will we be able to bring it in. But of course, all I can say is that we are committed to bringing it in, barring what politics it is, doesn't matter.
But it's
the
not
money that you and I
it's legal.
own.
See, I must point out to you, Vaibhav Aggarwal, while I have tremendous respect for the politics, this is not about politics at all. It's about legality. It's about what this money is now turned itself into.
Absolutely.
And how are you going to possibly recover it. Now, I don't know if it's about diplomacy anymore. Thomas Franco wanted to answer. Thomas Franco, simply focus on this. Simply focus on the point at hand. Thomas Franco, you want to respond, you want to rebut to what Vaibhav Aggarwal was saying?
Yeah. See, that year 2013, 14 to 17, there has been more scams, more problems, and there is a book released today in Delhi titled Reforming the Indian Banking Challenges and alternatives for
Yes,
future.
yes, yes. Stay on
in
point,
which
please. Yes.
They have highlighted what has happened between 2014 and 17, how the frauds have increased, how the policies have been responsible for that. So what is needed is policy changes. Intervention is needed at the policy level, at RBI, at the finance ministry level. Unless we do that, the things are going to
No,
worsen.
Faye,
Can I add?
Faye, I need to rebut this when he finishes.
Right. Meghnad, go ahead.
I
Faye,
mean, the
can I
2013-14 is
something
because so many scams
Yeah,
have come
I think
in
Mr.
because
Gaurav
we've been able
Aggarwal
to bring in
has
policy changes,
has
intervened,
forgotten
investigate,
the
and that is why
reforms his own
this is coming in
government is
front.
trying to-
Right. Meghnad, go ahead. Meghnad.
Mr. Gaurav Aggarwal seems to have forgotten that his government has introduced a bill called Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill, which actually would let the government seize the property of fugitive economic offenders. That bill has a
No, I
lot of
remember
problems in it, but
everything,
let's not
Meghnad,
get
but
into
Faye
that.
said don't make it
I would also
technical.
like to sort of disagree with. It's not technical. It's a bill. She asked, how will you recover it? There is a bill in parliament.
why
You
would
have
you
to
want
pass
to
it. You have
resort
to
to
debate
personal
it, which is
attacks?
not happening. So basically, that's the answer right there. I'm not doing a personal attack. I'm just helping you say that, you know, your government is actually doing something there, and I was just pointing it out to the viewers. And Mr. Ethiraj, I would
Thank
like
you.
to sort of disagree with you where you say that, of course, the bankers basically have to be held accountable, but it is a systemic problem, right? I mean, there are failures on multiple levels, and it has been going on for years. It was happening during the Congress. It is happening still. The fraudulent, basically, MOUs have been renewed now. So I think it is a systemic issue, and we need to zoom out and talk about the banking
let's
sector
ask
as a
about
whole.
let's
So,
ask
I
these
mean,
questions.
that's
Let's ask
my
like
response.
Govind told us. Let's start at the
No,
very.
one second. Can I come back quickly? Can I come back for 10 seconds
All right,
on
all
that?
right, Govind, go
Can
ahead,
I come
go
back for
ahead.
10 seconds on that?
Faye, can I
See,
come in here,
I'm not. See, the thing. All I'm saying is, all I'm saying is that. All I'm saying is that I know it is a systemic failure. We all know it is a systemic failure. It is a systemic failure on multiple fronts. All I'm saying is we need to see action. If you want to see action, we cannot be talking about transnational jurisdictional issues where we really have no control at this point, despite what we may say. So let us focus on the people we can catch, the next we can squeeze, and then show that we want to do something. That's all I'm saying. The systemic problem. That's why I started by saying that there were 4 areas. I talked about provisioning. I talked about industry intelligence. I talked about transactional systems, and I talked about cybersecurity.
Can I
And I
come
said
in here,
that
please?
cybersecurity is one area where we fixed things or we seem to be in control, but the other areas we're not. So these are the systemic problems which we can address and we should address. But let's catch a few necks and let's squeeze
Yes.
a few necks.
And those necks are available
in the
to
banks
you.
which we need to move right now. That's all
in,
I'm saying.
In the management of the banks that
Fair
that ignored the CBC, in the auditors of the RBI who didn't do their jobs, in the various people who were supposed to be checks and balances to make sure that this didn't happen, and they allowed it to happen at the scale. So see, you must remember, it is not 1 crore rupees, it's not 2 crore rupees, it's 11,000 crore rupees, which means people were looking away for a considerable amount of time to allow this to happen. And these people are still in our country. Like Govind said, they're very easy to find, they're very easy to investigate, but we haven't investigated them. Why haven't we investigated them? Why don't we want to know who is hand in glove and who is complicit to have allowed this to happen? Sanjay, I'm going to come to you. I have a couple of people on the phone line. Rajaram in Mumbai. Rajaram,
You
go
know,
ahead.
I would.
Hello.
Yes.
Mr. This is Rajaram. Please
Yes.
do not even at all ask Mr. Aggarwal or anybody, this money is not going to come. Just understand, this is just now we have been hearing of late, ICICI Bank's chairperson has been hounded for 3,450 crores. Has a single thing happened against Mrs. Usha Subramaniam or any other, sorry, I may not be knowing the name, the various managing directors? Punjab National Bank's managing director comes and thumbs his chest and says, within 6 months we'll be rooting out this problem.
Yes.
What has happened? What has happened? And please remember, let's all remember, till that, let's not forget that this government has ensured a retrospective amendment to ensure political donations from foreign people. Please
Yes.
understand that. So
Yes.
this is an indication for all this thing. So if you can fund us, you are there.
It's very, very clear. Isn't it clear? So, where is the root of the problem? And all this, and please, I would disagree with most of them. It's not a systemic problem. It is human problem, really, because of avarice, because of laziness, because how can they not, as a banker, not understand?
You know what, Rajaram, I refuse to say laziness. You might let a rat run by for many days because you're too lazy to catch that rat. You don't allow 11,000 crore rupees to be stolen from you because you're too lazy to stand up. I mean, that's ridiculous. This is not laziness. This is pure, unadulterated, the blackest, darkest form of corruption you could possibly think of. Michael on the phone line from Navi Mumbai. Very quickly, go ahead.
Yeah.
Good evening, Faye.
Yes, good evening, Michael. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for letting me on. This has been a systematic failure of, I think, I'm being apolitical here, of most of the governments. I am scared to put my money in a bank because I don't know whether I'm going to get it back. The problem is this government came into being with the premise that they are going to, make sure they're going to clean up the system. But here, every day on every channel, especially yours, you're highlighting the problem.
Right, Michael, I understand what you're saying, but I must point out to you and to all of the other viewers right now, this sort of scam has nothing to do with your deposit money. So if you have a fixed deposit with Punjab National Bank or with any other bank, your money is safe. There is nothing wrong with your deposits. This is a problem of the people who are running the bank. And as a result, what they're going to do is they're going to constantly clog failures or they're going to lock losses in the bank year after year after year. The bank is going to continually write losses, and that's a problem for us because we own that bank. It's owned by the taxpayers, run by our tax money, money that should be used for education and for health and for roads and for water and for food. Is being used to run Punjab National Bank and is being run in such a bad and irresponsible manner. That's the reason for concern. Not because if you put your money in a fixed deposit, it might disappear tomorrow. That's not a reason for concern. I want to point that out very, very clearly. Sanjay Jha, go ahead, please.
Also,
Faye, I think it all boils down to the bottom line. What is your political intention? And I'll give you two examples of where I think the entire approach to corruption and black money in our economy, which, by the way, a lot of it is rooted through the banking system, has not really been attacked at all. And you have had serious evidence. And let me mention here the Panama Papers. In the Panama Papers case, you have had ministers, heads of state who have been forced to resign. And Nawaz Sharif, our neighboring Prime Minister of Pakistan, had to quit. And the Paradise Papers and other explosive documents.
Sanjay Jha, are you honestly going to sit here today and accuse the BJP government of not taking action against the corrupt? After the track record of the UPA government, let's be honest, UPA 2 was among the most corrupt periods that India has ever seen. The scale of the corruption was shocking.
Let me answer.
So at the very least, you shouldn't be throwing stones.
Faye, let me answer that. Faye, let me answer that.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not being self-righteous at all. I'm going to give you a very absolutely brutally honest answer. I've been through those debates. I've been at the receiving end. But let me tell you, the truth is that Panama Papers and Paradise Papers are manifestations of highest levels of corruption. The government has the names of the people. They are listed. What have they done about it? The biggest willful defaulters of banks are some of the largest companies of India. Their names are with the Reserve Bank of India and with the government.
Yeah, but Faye, I need to come in now.
Why?
I was not keeping it
Vaibhav Aggarwal will respond. Vaibhav Aggarwal,
let me tell you that.
Vaibhav Aggarwal will respond.
Just 1 minute, Mr. Aggarwal.
Sanjay Jha, I'll tell you what action are we taking.
The UPA
and you know
passed the Lokpal bill against corruption. Not even a Lokpal no Lokpal has been appointed. Vaibhav, give me 5 seconds.
Don't worry
please.
about it. Let's stick to Nirav Modi.
Let's passed the Lokpal bill. Made it into an act in 2013. 5 years later, there is no Lokpal.
But not today.
The RTI.
On the
we
Lokpal,
passed a bill to protect whistleblowers.
Sanjay Dada,
where are you?
On the Lokpal debate. Today's Nirav Modi debate.
For God's sake, don't comment on corruption.
Sanjay
Please explain the
it is Nirav Modi debate, and let me.
The world is asking.
All right, gentlemen, pipe down, please. Please be civil.
On Vikram Kothari, on Mehul Choksi, on Lalit Modi, on Vijay Mallya. Answer these questions.
Yeah, can I
You have
Yeah,
defrauded
can I
the
re-
entire
can
Indian
I
country.
rebut?
Sanjay Jha, I only
Or
have
am
30
I-
seconds. We have to be fair and allow him to answer. Go ahead.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, thank you, Faye. I appreciate it. Now, you know, I was avoiding political discussions, but as Sanjay ji brought it out, you know, I would be happy to tell you some facts, and for the sake of the audiences that are that are watching. Jatin Mehta, the Minister of External Affairs, cleared his passport, his family's passport, and applications to travel abroad post the scam in 2010, 12 and 13. It was not the BJP or the NDA government. Point number one. Point number two, PNB, everyone knows we have papers and calls and photographs where Rahul Gandhi called the PNB chief saying pass loans. You know, and the story goes on.
Sir, Nirav Modi was
if
with
we all
Narendra
have the
Modi in
patience,
Davos.
wait till such time that,
And
that
Modi
the government,
called him
you know,
Mehul
allow
Bhai.
me to finish.
Boss, don't
Please,
try
Sanjay
and
ji.
fool the public of
Please.
India.
Yeah,
Don't try and fool the
absolutely.
public of India.
Because
You stand
Modi ji is a
exposed
Gujarati. If you
Okay,
don't
okay.
know,
I have,
I
no,
will-
hang on. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I don't have
promised
time for
Faye,
this
I
sort of
wanted
thing.
him to have his
No,
interest.
gentlemen,
Come on,
gentlemen. This is the worst
Back
part.
this.
Let me
You
point
know,
out to you, and I'm going to be
so,
completely
you know,
honest.
so
Vaibhav
nobody
Aggarwal,
wants to
Sanjay
talk
Jha,
of
this
the
is the
reforms,
worst
the
part
banking
about
reform
inviting
bill.
politicians
You know,
onto panels
nobody
is
wants
because
to talk of the
you
banking
reduce the
insolvency and,
conversation to a mudslinging match, which is really unfair to everybody else who's been on the panel,
but I
who has
stayed
been
quiet. I stayed
completely
decent
fair to you.
today.
Meghnad, in
I
fact,
didn't touch
argued
it
in your
till
favor. Mr.
the
Vaibhav
time I was
Aggarwal,
back.
Govind Rajetraj argued in your favor. There was no need to turn this into a
Absolutely.
Congress versus BJP, and that's the disappointing
Absolutely.
part, because for as long as you are slinging mud at each other, you've
No, but why did Sanjay
you've
have to
let
start it
the
then?
criminals get away scot-free. Now, let me point out something to my audience. This year in the union budget, the allocation we made to education, the thing that could in fact be the silver bullet that solves almost all of India's problems, education. We allocated lesser money to education by 4% this year. We lowered our spend to education by 4%. Do you know what else we lowered our spend to spend on? Defense. We lowered our spending on defense this year. Where's the money going? Why aren't we treating our money with more respect? Why aren't we being a little more careful about where the money is going? It is very, very obvious today, if we look at all of the details that have tumbled out, that the management of Punjab National Bank, right up to the managing director, knew about what was going on and looked the other way for whatever motive. Where is the investigation that will tell us why the managing director looked the other way? Is he bad at his job, or is he corrupt? Is she bad at her job, or is she corrupt? Over and above that, the RBI, the directors on the board of that bank, the RBI that was meant to conduct audits, did no such thing. It looked the other way for years. What is Urjit Patel doing? He seemed to have completely forgotten his job. Mr. Patel, please read your job profile one more time. While we appreciate how much time and effort you put into managing inflation, you are also the regulator of the banking sector. And finally, the finance ministry, that is the owner of these banks, that should have come down hard on the management and the RBI for not doing their jobs, did no such thing either. At the end of the day, here are the people of India with lower spends on education, lower spends on defense, babies dying in hospitals, no roads, no water, because you let our money leave the country. All of the experts will agree there's absolutely no way this money can come back. No way that this money can come back at all. What are you going to do? How many properties does Nirav Modi have in India that you can auction to recover 11,000 crore rupees? Who's going to pay this money? Punjab National Bank's managing director confidently puts a statement out saying we'll be out of this mess in 6 months. Well, really, sir, Mr. Mehta, with whose money? Who's going to give you the money to be out of this mess in 6 months? You're going to take it out of my salary? How dare you? My salary is going to get cut. I will pay GST on everything I buy and spend. It will go to the finance minister, who will then allocate it to refinance the banks. It will find its way into the Punjab National Bank. The Punjab National Bank will pretend that the money is falling out of the sky and it has absolutely no accountability to anybody. Whose money is it? It's my money. And none of these people have any right to treat my hard-earned money and your hard-earned money like it means nothing. And that's exactly what's happening in this country right now. We have to be more vocal and more angry about the way we're being treated. That's exactly what we're going to do on this channel. We'll keep bringing it up until we're so inconvenient that you're going to have to do something about it. Mr. Finance Minister, Mr. RBI Governor, and certainly the Managing Director of Punjab National Bank. Thanks for watching.